This is the Dogs on the Hill podcast with your host, Reeves Fisackerly.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Dogs on the Hill podcast. I'm your host, Reeves Fisackerly. Today is Sunday, July 9th. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. The MLB All-Star Break is actually starting tomorrow. It'll be from July 10th to the 13th, and all of the festivities will be taking place in Seattle at the Mariners ballpark. And some of the festivities have actually already started. We had some of the top talent in the country at the high school level compete in a game about, I think it was 2 days ago. We also had the inaugural HBCU Swingman Classic. That was one of the earlier events to happen in Seattle. And now it's time for the MLB All-Star Game. That is going to be Tuesday, July 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and it'll be on Fox. Now, I feel like this episode is just going to be a good opportunity for me to catch you up with the state of the MLB. We are halfway through the season. That is what the All-Star Game signifies. And so let's just talk some ball. Now, keep in mind, all of these stats that I'm going to go through, they were updated at about noon today. So there are still some games being played today. There's quite a few. So I don't know what the outcome of those games are because they're going to be going all day. But today is the last day of play before the actual All-Star Game, which is on Tuesday. So let's look at our division leaders. Let's see if the playoffs started today, who is for sure going. So we have, in the AL East, we have the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays actually have the second best record in the entire MLB, the best record in the AL, and they came out the gates storming this year. In their first 13 games, they won all 13 of them. They're only the third team in the history of the MLB to start 13-0, something that hasn't happened in nearly 40 years. But they couldn't break the record and get to 14. But regardless, they still have an insane record. They're 57-35. Unfortunately for the Rays fans, the last week has honestly been pretty tough. They dropped all 3 games against the Phillies, and they lost yesterday to the Atlanta Braves. So they've sustained about 5 losses in about 5 days. So pretty tough recent stretch going into the All-Star Game, but it's a long season. Everything that has just happened are about to do it again, meaning they've played 80, 90 games. They're about to play 80, 90 more. So we'll see how the Rays can do. But right on their tail are the Baltimore Orioles. They're only 2 games back in that AL East, which is surprising to me, honestly, because for as long as I can remember, at least as long as I've been watching baseball or have been in some way paying attention to baseball, I have not seen the Orioles piece together a great season. And that's not taking a shot at Baltimore. I'm just stating that in recent history, the O's have had some tough years, but they've been playing really well this year. And like I said, they're giving the Rays a run for their money in the overall standings of the MLB, or at least in the AL. They're really high up. I think they might actually be second in the AL overall. I think maybe third or fourth in the MLB overall. So, hey, I mean, congratulations, Baltimore fans. I'm going to try to not jinx you and speak too soon, but your first half of this season was really, really great. The AL Central hasn't been too exciting, but it's a close race for that lead. Right now, the Cleveland Guardians are in first, but the Minnesota Twins are half a game behind them. In the AL West, we have the Texas Rangers in first. Now, the Rangers actually, until recently, now they're tied for first, but they were first in the league in run differential for weeks, maybe even months, but they were just caught by the Braves. They're now tied with the Braves at plus 153. But regardless, the Rangers have an insane offense, which, again, after watching them last year, I feel like they were kind of similar to the O's in that last year was not a great year for them. The Rangers were a team that I don't know. I felt like for me personally, there wasn't too much to get excited about. Didn't really see too much. They got Corey Seager, though. He's great. But, man, this year they have a high-powered offense, and they really score runs, which, I mean, I know this is obvious, but frankly, how do you win games? You score runs, and the Rangers score a lot of them. Their other Texas team, their Texas rival, the Houston Astros, are 2 games behind them in the AL West as of right now. That is your reigning World Series champion in the Houston Astros. So we will see in the second half of the season not only who's going to win the AL West, but really who's going to win the Battle of Texas, because that banner or pennant flag depends on it. In the NL East, we have the Atlanta Braves. The Braves have a very strong grasp on the NL East. The Braves are first in the NL, and the second team behind them in the NL East is the Miami Marlins, who are 9.5 games back. Now, the Marlins have had a surprisingly good year so far. Again, another team that, at least in recent years, has not had that great of success. I mean, I think they made the playoffs around the COVID time frame, but haven't been able to sustain that success and have struggled since, which I know that's a shorter time frame. But regardless, rough recent years for the Marlins. And even though they're 9.5 games back of the Braves, they're still looking pretty good this year. I think, if anything, this just goes to show you how dominant the Braves are. Like I said, they just caught the Rangers in run differential at plus 153. And the Rays had been the best team in the entire MLB for a very long time this season, but the Braves just overtook them. I mentioned the Rays record earlier at 57-35. The Braves are now 60-28. They are the only team that has hit 60 wins, and we are in the All-Star break. So really great year for the Braves so far. They won the World Series in 2021. Since then, they have lost Freddie Freeman, but Ronald Acuna is still leading that team. And we have some more great Braves stats that I will share with you later when we dive into the All-Star break. The NL Central has also not been that interesting, both in the American League and the National League. The Central divisions haven't really been that fun to watch, honestly, in my opinion, so far. Right now, it's a battle between the Reds and the Brewers. They are actually in the midst of a series right now, and they did play yesterday. The Reds took that win 8-5, win that helped them move up in that division, of course, and they will play again today around 2 o'clock Eastern time. That game is in Milwaukee. The Arizona Diamondbacks have taken over the NL West. The Dodgers are half a game behind them, but still, the Diamondbacks have held onto this division for the last week, maybe even more. At one point, I think it was last week, the Dodgers were 2.5 games behind, so they have done some work to catch up. But this division, at least recently in the last few years, it's been between the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Padres. It's just been those 3 California teams putting solid seasons together and fighting each other for the division title. But the Dodgers are okay, they're right behind the Diamondbacks, but the Padres and the Giants are kind of having some tough stretches, tough seasons at this point. Maybe they'll piece it together, maybe they won't, but regardless, the Diamondbacks have a lead, a slim lead, on the NL West. So like I said, the All-Star game is on Tuesday night, and let's take a look at those rosters. So taking a look at the roster of the AL All-Star team, we have the Texas Rangers sending the most players. 6 players from Texas were selected to be on the AL roster. And not only did Texas have the most players chosen, they also had the most starters chosen with 4. Those players are Jonah Heim, Marcus Semien, Josh Jung, and Corey Seager. And your starting pitcher for the AL is, of course, Shohei Ohtani, or I believe he's expected to be the starter. He's the number 1 pitcher. In the National League, we have been talking about the Braves, talking them up, and that was definitely reflected. Not only did the Braves send the most players to the NL All-Star team, the Braves sent the most players to the All-Star game, period. 8 Braves players were selected to be a part of the national team this year. As for starters, the Braves have 3 players who will be starting. That is going to be Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, and Ronald Acuna Jr. The Dodgers also tied the Braves for sending the most starters in the National League. They have 3 players who are going to start on Tuesday. That'll be Freddie Freeman, who is a former Atlanta Brave, Mookie Betts, and JD Martinez. I believe it's expected that the starting pitcher is going to be Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks, or at least he's listed as the number 1 pitcher for that NL team. Now let's take a look at some notable players who were selected for the All-Star game, but will be missing the All-Star game mostly due to injury. And I have 3 from each league. So first, the American League. First, we have Mike Trout. It's very hard to see what happened, or at least it's hard to clearly see what happened when Trout got injured last week, but he was playing in a game against the Padres. He takes a swing at a pitch. It goes foul, flies behind him, and then he just kind of circles around home plate, looks like he's about to step up to get in the batter's box again, and then decides against it and is escorted out of the game. He does not return. Well, it turns out Trout actually fractured the hamate bone, I believe is how you say it, in his left hand, and he underwent surgery on it Wednesday. It's unclear how long Trout will be out and how long he will be missing play, but it's expected to be a long-term injury. He just got surgery a few days ago. Aaron Judge has been out of baseball for a month. He was selected to the All-Star game, but will be missing it. He sprained his big right toe, which was an injury that he sustained at Dodger Stadium in the beginning of June. Now, this is an injury that very well could require surgery, but Judge has said he does not want to undergo surgery. If he did, that would most definitely keep him out of the season. He would not be able to return at all in 2023. Maybe the postseason, I don't know, but at least for the regular season, he would definitely not be able to return, and I assume the postseason as well. Judge has also said some words regarding his injury publicly that should definitely cause concern for not only Yankees fans, but just fans of Judge and fans of baseball with a player of this high caliber and high skill set. He has said that he doesn't think it'll be the same ever again, which is very sad news, and it's definitely not great news to hear, especially given that Judge just this past offseason, after breaking the AL record for most home runs in a single season, signed a 9-year contract extension with the Yankees worth $360 million. So, not a good spot to be in. And our third player in the AL is Rays pitcher Shane McClanahan. Now, hopefully this is not a severe injury, but McClanahan was pulled from Friday's game against the Mariners due to a back flare-up. So he will be missing the All-Star game as a result of that injury. But like I said, hopefully that proves to be a minor injury and McClanahan can recover quickly. He has definitely been a huge pitcher for the Rays this season and obviously selects the All-Star game, so one of the best players in the American League. Jumping to the National League, Dansby Swanson, shortstop for the Chicago Cubs, was selected to the All-Star game and will be missing it in what was a strange injury, kind of reminiscent of Trout's. I spoke about Trout's injury being hard to identify when watching the footage. Swanson actually nailed a deep solo home run far into center field against the Yankees on Saturday and just does his trot around the bases, comes into home plate as he's walking to the dugout. He's walking pretty funny. Turns out he has a contusion on his left heel. Again, like I said, it's kind of hard to identify how that happened, or at least if it was obvious seeing it, it was not shown from a camera angle. So again, hopefully this is not a severe injury. It was definitely not an obvious injury, but regardless, Swanson will be out for the NL. Spencer Strider, pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, is not injured, but he will not be playing in the All-Star game because the Braves are actually playing the Tampa Bay Rays right now. They played yesterday, and they're playing again today. The report that I read said that Strider was expected to pitch today. Now, I feel like that might just be outdated because he did pitch yesterday for the for the Braves against the Rays. So I highly doubt that he would pitch again today. But regardless, the reasoning for missing the game would be the same. It's too close together. They're going to give him some time to rest. And lastly is Clayton Kershaw of the LA Dodgers. He will be missing the All-Star game due to shoulder soreness, which again is hopefully not a major injury. But that's 2 pitchers on the NL team who will not be there. Now, the players who clinched those positions, Ohtani and Acuna, the players first named as members in the All-Star game, they are both expected to play. And this is good news because, one, it's the top talent in the league, both leagues, the entire MLB, up to this point. So you want to be able to showcase that to fans. But it's especially great for Ohtani because there was concern that he would miss the All-Star game. Because in the same game that Trout broke his hand, Ohtani was pulled from that game early due to some concern with his hand. I believe he had a swollen middle finger on his throwing hand. I don't know for certain. But there was worry of how long, what was it, and will he be out long? And of course, the All-Star game is coming up. Will he be able to play? As of right now, it seems that he is expected to play, yes. Now, I do want to give a segment to Ohtani right here. So I guess we'll go ahead and throw this out. The dog of the day is Shohei Ohtani. This guy is ridiculous. I haven't had a great opportunity so far to talk about him on this show. So we're going to run through some Ohtani stats, and I really want to talk to you guys about how, I don't even know if generational does this do justice, how historically talented this guy is so young in his career. If you are not a fan of baseball, you need to, or you can do whatever you want, but I highly recommend that you at least start trying to watch some Angels games when you can find them, or at least just watch Ohtani play. Ohtani, I think he should make you a baseball fan, and if he doesn't, at least make you a little more interested, change your perspective on the game and how you view it. I would just ask that if you're not the biggest fan of baseball, please try to overlook that a little bit and just pay attention or notice, maybe even passively observe the greatness that not only the baseball world, but the sports world is seeing in Shohei Ohtani. Here's some stats just from the season, just from the first half. So he got a 7-4 record as a pitcher. He has a 3.32 ERA, which is the best on his team. 132 strikeouts, the best on his team, and 3rd in the American League. A batting average of .302 leads the team. 32 home runs this year, which not only leads the team, not only leads the American League, but leads the entire MLB. He has 71 RBI, which leads the team and puts him in 2nd in the American League. He's stolen 11 bases, leads the team, and he has 103 hits, leads the team, tied for 2nd in the AL. Every stat that I just read is either leading the team, and most of them are 1, 2, or 3 in the American League or the MLB. At 84 games played in the season, Shohei Ohtani had 30 home runs. 30 home runs in 84 games played. To put that in perspective, Aaron Judge, who set the record, I said this earlier, set the record for most home runs in a single season in American League history with 62. He did that last year. At 84 games played, he also had 30 home runs. And Ohtani, in game 85, hit a home run. Ohtani is on pace to either match that record or beat it. This is a record that stood for years that Judge broke last year. And Ohtani, a single year later, it's very possible for him to match it or break it. Ohtani has remarkable talent. As a batter and a pitcher, he is one of the best in the league, one of the best pitchers in the league, one of the best hitters of in the league, if he's not the best for both of those categories. And that is incredibly rare to see somebody who plays pitcher hit this well, or to see somebody who hits this well play pitcher and do it so well. Ohtani just turned 29. He hasn't been in the league for that long. It's been less than 10 years. And the thing that I'm going to be watching, and many baseball fans are going to be watching and asking the question about, is how long can Ohtani do this? How long can he be a dominant hitter and a dominant pitcher? How long can he do both? Because what he's doing right now, I cannot stress to you how remarkable this is, how much talent this guy has. Ohtani was a free agent going into this 2023 season. He had no contract. And then a surprise to most, if not all of us baseball fans, he signed a 1-year deal with the Angels. He was going to come back for this year, and he gets $30 million for it, which is ridiculous. That is a huge single-season contract. Now, he is expected to hit the free agency market this year. He's not expected to go back with the Angels at all. The Mets and the Dodgers were the number one contenders to land him last year before the Angels re-signed him. Now, it is expected that the Mets and the Dodgers will lead the way in the Ohtani sweepstakes again this summer. I'm hearing reports that it's more leaning towards the Dodgers, so that would be pretty crazy if Ohtani just stayed in LA and flipped to the different franchise, different league. But what I am hearing and what I have been seeing for months says, do not be shocked if Ohtani signs a deal that sounds something like 15 years for $1 billion. That is absolutely mind-blowing. $1 billion, a decade and a half, Shohei Ohtani. Again, this is where I want to see how long can Ohtani last. This is not me doubting. I am a huge fan of Ohtani, and I love watching him play. This is just one of those things where if you're a business person working in the front office of an organization, do you want to lock this guy up until he's 44, and by the end of that, have paid him $1 billion? And for how many of those 15 years will he still be the best pitcher and the best batter? At what point does he stop pitching? At what point does he stop hitting? Again, we're dealing with the unknown, but it's just a thought, because this is going to be crazy to witness this offseason. Where is Ohtani going, for how long, and for how much? Because he deserves to get paid as the best player in the league. I'm not saying $1 billion. That's far removed from me, and that's not my decision. But Ohtani will make some serious cash for a serious length of time in a huge market franchise and hopefully be able to win a few rings. Now, the question that I'm going to ask you, that I want you to think about, and feel free to engage in the comments below or send me an email at dogsonthehillpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a direct message at dogsonthehillpodcast on Instagram. I've heard discussion happen. What do the Angels do? Do you trade Ohtani? And if you do, win, or do you hold on to him? Because here's the argument for keeping him. Best player in baseball, easily. He is playing at the top of his game. You're not in a great spot as the Angels in the standings. However, you still have an entire back half of a season to play through, and you're only 4.5 games out of the wild card. So do you try to piece together a better team and push through and fight for that wild card spot while you still have Ohtani playing in a remarkable stage of his career? Or do you send him away and trade now for as much as you can get? And you would get so much for Ohtani. The contract thing might be something to work through because, like I said, he will be a free agent this year. But if you go ahead and send him to a Dodgers or a Mets, who, again, are expected to lead the charge in getting him, how much can you get back? I'll tell you, it's a lot. So that's what I want to leave you with. That's what I want you to think about. What do you do if you're the Angels with Ohtani? And that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I caught you up on the status of the MLB, where we are right now. We're halfway through the season. That's pretty much all we got going on this summer. We will be hearing some more news. You know, we're still prepping for football. Basketball just ended. Hockey's over. So we're riding the MLB until we can and counting down the days till football. We're going to enjoy the All-Star game, and then some teams will start making their playoff pushes. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hope to have you back next time.